Welcome, where silence screams. Every story is cursed. Don't blink.
Daniel Brooks checked into the roadside motel just before midnight. Exhausted from a 10-hour drive and desperate for sleep, the neon sign outside buzzed irregularly, lighting the parking lot in brief flashes of red before plunging it back into darkness. At the front desk, the clerk never looked up, only slid the key across with shaking fingers. The room smelled faintly of bleach and something metallic that Daniel couldn't place. The walls were thin, and every distant sound seemed unnaturally close, like breathing just behind them. When he locked the door, the click echoed longer than it should have. Daniel dropped his bag and sat on the edge of the bed, noticing how cold the room was despite the heater running. The mirror across from him reflected the room slightly darker than it looked in real life. He blamed fatigue and turned away as he lay down. A soft knock came from the wall behind the headboard. It wasn't loud, just 3 slow taps, evenly spaced, as if someone was testing the surface. Daniel waited, holding his breath. But the knocking didn't return. Sometime after midnight, he woke to the sound of footsteps above him. The motel had only 1 floor. The steps moved slowly, dragging, stopping directly over his bed. Daniel sat up, his heart pounding, listening as the steps crossed back and forth. The ceiling creaked under the weight, this falling lightly onto his blanket. When the footsteps stopped, the silence felt heavier than the noise. He reached for his phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on despite being fully charged earlier. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe, and the heater now blew cold air that smelled damp. From the bathroom, he heard the faint sound of running water. Daniel stood and pushed the bathroom door open, finding the sink overflowing onto the tile floor. The mirror above it was fogged, as if someone had just taken a hot shower. Slowly, words began forming through the steam. The message read, "You should have left." Daniel stumbled back, slipping slightly on the water, his breath coming fast and shallow. When he looked again, the mirror was clear, as if nothing had ever been written. A sudden pounding erupted from the room next door, loud and frantic. A man's voice screamed for help, muffled but desperate, pounding like fists against the walls. Daniel rushed to the door and pressed his ear against it, but the sound stopped instantly. The hallway outside was empty when he opened the door. The carpet stretched endlessly in both directions, the lights flickering in uneven intervals. No doors showed signs of movement, and no voices followed. Daniel walked toward the room next door and knocked. There was no answer, but the door was warm to the touch, almost hot. When he pulled his hand back, his palm was damp, though he hadn't been sweating. Back inside his room, the television turned on by itself. Static filled the screen, then slowly shifted into grainy footage of the motel hallway. Daniel watched in horror as the camera angle moved, stopping directly outside his room. On the screen, the door opened and someone stepped out. It was Daniel, wearing the same clothes, moving the same way, his face pale and hollow. The image froze on his own reflection staring directly into the camera. The TV snapped off, plunging the room into darkness. A low humming filled the air, vibrating through the floor and into his chest. From the corner of the room, a shape began to separate from the shadows. It looked human but wrong, like a person stretched to thin. Its face lacked features, only smooth skin where eyes and mouth should have been. It tilted its head, listening, as if curious about Daniel's breathing. Daniel backed toward the door, fumbling with the handle. The lock wouldn't turn, grinding uselessly as the humming grew louder. The thing took 1 slow step forward, then another, its movements deliberate and calm. A loud knock slammed against the door from outside, making Daniel flinch. A woman's voice called his name, sounding familiar but distant. She begged him to open the door, saying she was trapped. Daniel hesitated, torn between the voice and the thing approaching him. The knocking turned violent, shaking the door in its frame. The featureless figure stopped moving and turned its head toward the sound. The door burst open suddenly, and the hallway lights flooded the room. Everything vanished at once: the figure, the humming, the cold. A motel manager stood there, confused, asking if Daniel was alright. Morning came too quickly, sunlight washing the fear from the room. Daniel packed without looking back, ignoring the manager's questions. He drove away convinced it had all been stress and exhaustion. 2 weeks later, Daniel woke up in his own bed to the sound of soft knocking. 3 slow taps came from the wall behind his headboard. The room felt colder than it should have. He sat up and noticed his phone wouldn't turn on. From the hallway outside his bedroom, he heard footsteps dragging slowly across the floor. The knocking started again, closer this time, coming from inside the wall.
It's over, or so you think. The darkness stays. Until next time.